thank you very much. A little bit about me. I read English at university. After that, I did chartered accountancy because, well, I didn't want to be a lawyer, really, frankly, and there's nothing else you can do with a degree in English literature, is there? When I qualified as an accountant, I went to one of those careers fairs, you know those things. You take students out for lunch and persuade them to join your firm. Apparently, I drank too much and told the head of human resources the reason why our firm recruited idiots was because we had idiots doing the recruiting. He took this personally, as I'm sure some of you would, and rang me up the following morning and told me I'd just earned for myself a job in recruitment on a short-term basis to put into practice some of the ideas we'd been discussing the previous evening. So I got into human resources that way. I ended up as the firm's first non-chargeable partner in heading up human resources. Some time after that, I went to business school. I was supposed to come back with lots of ideas about human resources, but of course the only idea I did have about human resources was what? Get out of it as soon as possible, which I successfully achieved, and went back client side, of course, working on the owner-managed business, professional service firms, family businesses, that sort of thing. At BDO, where I was a partner for a long time. I left there some years ago. I now run my own firm of advisors, but I spend a third of my time teaching, mostly at London Business School, but at other business schools around the world. My expertise is the owner-managed business and the management of growth and growth challenges in that context. That's my latest book, which you can buy if you wish, and if you don't want to, that's fine by me. Themes I'm going to explore over the next half an hour or so related to challenges of growth, that growth equals change, that change equals crisis, that change and crisis are things that we don't like, that change in our industry, the professional service firm industry, and that includes you as law firm, me as an accountant of yore, me as a professional service advisor as well, of course, are compounded by external change. Let's pin down some of that external change. Changing commercial imperatives demanding growth as we grow. To what extent do the managers impose imperatives on us that get in the way of professional expertise? And to what extent does the changing world of professional expertise get in the way of what clients expect in terms of client service? These are challenges that we all need to face up to, of course, as we work through our careers and see our firms evolve. Sit back for the moment and listen to a story. I know you want to relax. Let me tell you a story about a business school. Some years ago, it was the summer term, a bit like now. The sun was shining. People didn't really want to be here. Or if they did want to be here, it was only because it was better than being somewhere else. As this was a business school, these are professional students. They've got to the end of their course. They know the minimum that you need to do to get through a session. Unbeknown to them, the faculty also are professionals. They know the minimum that you need to do as well. And a marriage made in heaven is to bring along a guest speaker. Guest speaker who can then hold the platform. The professor can sit at the side, and if the speaker is good, it reflects on the professor's participation scores. On this occasion, he brings along an individual, a lady called Mary Kay. Do we know what industry Mary Kay is in? Cosmetics, that's right. Okay, cosmetics industry. Nothing to do with the law. You can relax. Mary Kay, very distinctive individual. She's passed away now, but in the time of her working life, always dressed in pink bouffant hair, pink horn-rimmed glasses. She was followed to the stage by two younger versions of herself, also dressed in pink horn-rimmed glasses. They knew how to get promoted in that particular firm. Maybe there are lessons for you. And they're followed by a bloke with no hair at all, bless him. Had glasses, but they weren't pink. We knew that he was the bag carrier. How? He was carrying the bag. You're good. He was carrying the bag. Mary Kay gets shown to the podium, and she does speak at the podium. And once the titters have died down and there is some amusement here, the audience has to confess she's good. She's really good. She should be good. She founded her business herself. It now turns over a few billion US a year. You can laugh if you wish, but if anybody knows about growth and the challenges and how to do it successfully, it's her. At the end of the session, there are questions. She deals with the questions well, of course, until there's one question, and it's from some bloke sat at the back. Yeah, some bloke sat at the back who's surrounded by papers, whose professional mission in life is to catch out the key speaker. He asks this question. I don't know what it was about, I can't remember. Something about earnings per share. The subtext of the question was that Mary Kay Cosmetics Incorporated was based on a financial foundation of sand, and the only person who didn't appreciate this was Mary Kay herself. There's silence at the end of the question. People look at Mary Kay waiting for the answer. Nothing comes out. Because these are American students, their loyalty quickly shifts from admiration for Mary Kay to admiration for this student at the back of the room. Gosh, we wish we could have asked a question like that. She opens her mouth a second time, nothing comes out. And then a third time, and the only thing she can say is Cliff. People wonder if this is her preferred suicide methodology, soon to be, but it's not, of course. Cliff is the name of the bloke with no hair, who's been sat on the corner of the stage. Do you remember him? Cliff gets shown the podium. He has to have the question repeated because he wasn't paying attention either. Yeah. But then Cliff quickly takes this person at the back of the room to pieces 1 point at the time. If he didn't confuse division signs with multiplication signs, his analysis would have been better. Now, this is a group of companies. You've got to understand consolidated accounting. Just to look at one entity within the group distorts your interpretation of the figures. Cliff obviously knows what he's talking about, and so he should. He's the chief financial officer. This person at the back of the room dissolves into a puddle of tears, his moment of fortune quickly disappearing in front of him. Yeah. Because these are American students, their loyalty quickly shifts again, from admiration from the bloke at the back of the room to admiration for the team at the front. So this is a lesson to those of you who I know are sat at the back, only to cause trouble. Yeah. Our eye is on you, isn't it? We've got you marked already. Yeah. Now, the professor, who's a guy called John Cotter, tries to get close to Mary Kay. He can't because she's surrounded by students at the end of the session, but he can get close to one of the young girls dressed in pink. And he says, what I want to understand is how somebody like Mary Kay can work with Cliff. And Flunky pulls out an envelope and starts scribbling on it, and scribbles one of these 2x2 things, of course, which you need to be very good at if you really want to move away from just selling legal advice towards generally helping your business as business clients. You've got to be good at these 2x2 windows. Yeah? And Flunky points out that Mary Kay is up here on the top left-hand corner. She's leader, she's passion, she's spirit, she's enterprise, she's entrepreneurship. She created the thing. She owns the values of the piece. Cliff, on the other hand, is down here, bottom right. He's all management. He's like many people in this room. He's got the charisma of a toad. Yeah? You wouldn't show him dead or alive in public unless you have to. It's a high-risk strategy. Maybe you've witnessed one of those occasions today, when it's necessary to show Cliff in public. We don't do it unless we have to. We got away with it today. Indeed, he saved the day. Without him, this could have been a humiliating experience. What you've also got to understand is that Mary Kay has another job, which is to build a team which stretches across the two axes. A team of people with different skills and capabilities who complement each other. That's complement with an E, not an I. They complete each other. They don't lick each other and say yes, they complete each other, thus ensuring that that organisation preserves a position in the top right-hand corner, a nice balance between the leadership and the management, which is where every well-managed firm wishes to be, unless it's drawn one of the axes the wrong way around, of course. That balance between leadership and management here. Now, why am I telling you this? Well, two reasons. First of all, of course, we're clever enough to see that there is something in here about the role of management and its relationship to the substance of the organisation. In our context here, we're talking law, we're talking legal practice. There's also something here about people. There's also something here about growth, I suggest to you. All our firms start here. Whether they like it or not, they need to be dragged over here, and most of them don't like it. Truth of the matter is, most firms end up getting dragged down here into the fate of the overmanaged, the under-inspired on a glide path to history. The third division firm that would want to grow if it could, but can't really, can't break out of it. The overmanaged, the under-led is not a new experience. History, right through to ancient history, tells us stories. This is the title given by himself, to himself, by the finance director, if you wish, the treasury minister in Upper Egypt, Old Kingdom, 2200 BC. He called himself the governor of all that exists. And just to be safe, everything that doesn't exist as well. And this is before antimatter was hypothesized. Yeah? Now, it's not known on record what the managing partner of that firm had to say, but raising eyebrows at his new manager or chief operating officer, who comes from a professional services background but isn't a lawyer himself, wondering who really is running this particular show. Some questions, therefore, about who's going to last and for how long. But of course, if we're right about growth, we have to accept that these are real challenges. That is a real relationship that needs to be managed, notwithstanding the fact that these people think differently about things. Maybe that dip into the bottom right-hand corner is something that all our firms need to experience if we're going to get that balance right. Maintaining that position top right is difficult. Particularly difficult in professional services activity, where those of us and those of you, and there are some of you, of course, who work on the client side of things, need to understand what it is that we like about the work that we were trained to do, which might not be the same thing that our managers now want our firms to do, might not be something that our clients now want us to do, might not be something, of course, that the legal environment now expects of us, whether we like it or not. We need to find ourselves facing up to management challenges which we are ill-equipped for, unsuited for, and frankly don't like. Management levers, unlike professional service client levers, can take time. They're fuzzy. They're difficult to articulate and define. There is no such thing as an internal client. The notion of an internal client, in my mind, is bullshit. Internal clients do not behave like external clients. They are nastier. They're brutal. They can sack you far more easily. Psychological fit is fundamentally different when we're looking at management challenge. And each of these other things packs up to a package of activity that is not necessarily respected in an organization. And those of us who are not lawyers in the room, but are managers, know only too well that everybody wants you, needs you, blames you, tells you off. And when things go well, it's the lawyer's achievement, and when things go badly, it's your fault, isn't it? Deathly silence. Yeah. Why am I showing you this? Reminds me of another challenge and tension that we need to go through. My brother, you can look him up if you want. He was a partner at Arthur Andersen. He was made a partner at Arthur Andersen amongst the last batch to be made up before Arthur Andersen's demise. Indeed, in his celebratory party in New Orleans, at the same time, in the same hotel, in a different room, the managers of that firm were wondering how to deal with this Enron thing. And two accountants together, me and him, have often explored and discussed the demise of Andersen's. And one thing I've often asked him about is I never really understand how it is that you could get intelligent, which Andersen's people are and were, capable, qualified, well-paid, well-motivated, professional individuals standing next to a skip or a shredding machine and putting into it documents without somebody saying, what are we doing? I don't care what we're doing. I don't understand what we're doing. We're not going to do it anymore, or I'm not going to do it anymore. Being disobedient. I'm not interested in efficiency, profit. There are professional standards that come above that. And I always used to argue that in my firm, little BDO, insignificant BDO, compared to mighty Arthur Andersen, people just wouldn't do that. Why? Because quite possibly we weren't as well managed as Arthur Andersen. We had what I would call a culture of disobedience. That there is an association, therefore, between being disobedient and being professional. And being disobedient is not very good in terms of efficiency. In terms of commercial expediency, there is a tension between what makes money and can make money and what we need to do as professionals that we need to wrestle with as we go through our careers as well. It's not just a tension between management and professionalism, there's a tension between commercial reality and professionalism as well. And as our commercial environment is changing, we need to face up to that. It's a tension between being professional and giving clients what they want. I'm sure Enron were, at the time, very pleased with what Andersons were doing for them. Whether it was in their interests or not, I don't know. And of course, Enron, very much at the time, at the bleeding edge of a change in attitude and definition, not just to professional service, but also to a new post-internet way of doing business. Introduces another set of challenges for us that we need to face up to. I don't know how many have read the book, only out a few months ago, by Richard Susskind in particular, well known in legal circles, of course. Written this book in conjunction with his son, who's a fellow of Balliol College, Oxford. The Future of the Professions. Richard, in previous texts, has written about the threat of technology to professional services sectors, particularly the law sector. And in previous books, he has explored ways of developing and exploring and embracing technology to the advantage of professional service. The subtext of this book is a lot more threatening, questioning whether any of us will even have a right to exist in 15 years' time, whether the law profession itself, amongst other professions, is going to exist. Fundamental change there, not created by the tension between professionalism and client, not created by commercial expediency, not created by growth and the threats that does to our culture, but to the very underpinnings of our profession, giving us fundamental choices that we need to face up to. Not about being clever, not about being cute or well-educated. These are choices that we're now going to face up to. The best business book I've ever read, this one, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. It's our choices, Harry, that show us truly what we are, far more than our abilities. And in so doing, let's reflect, if we can, on some of these changes in professional service circles, particularly, I suggest to you, law. Threats from technology, threats from commodification. I'm sure many of us are embracing new commodity-style products and services, threats from regulation, threats from competition, of course. Are our definitions of client service keeping up with changes to expectations of what it means to be a professional? Are our definitions of client service and are they rich enough? Do they tie in well with the types of people we have, the hierarchies that we have got, the organisational forms that we are adopting? These are challenges that hopefully we're going to face up to during the rest of the day. And these are not just about our firms, these are about ourselves. I'd like to make a gradual shift out of the law and into something more administrative. For example, I could write reports that tell other people how to do their jobs better, when what I want to do is their job. Then I could gradually shift out of writing reports and into something more vegetative, like sitting in a conference like this, when what I want to do is to embrace my clients. That was what I was trained to do. This is a thesis, of course, that's been explored a lot over the years. Professionals are a distinct group. We are well paid. I know we say we're not, but we are. We're not in it just for the money, however. We might think our managers are, but we certainly aren't. We're ambitious. We're competitive types. We cast greedy eyes at each other. We are very clever, and therefore we have delusions of superiority. I don't know if you walked through Lincoln Inn Field and saw those Aston Martins and Jags lined up there. Yeah. We have delusions of insecurity, which David Maister wrote so well about. Delusions in general, I would suggest. It's all part of being a professional. And Maister drew attention to this splendidly 20 years ago in arguing that we're all imposters. We're waiting for somebody to tap us on the shoulder and saying, "I found you out. You are a lawyer, I know, but you know diddly squat. You might know diddly squat more than me as your client, but not nearly enough to justify, A, the ridiculous amount you're charging me, or these delusions of grandeur that you've got." And we all suffer from this syndrome, so do I, which is why I set the expectations about the back row at the beginning. Threatening you not to challenge me too much because I'm worried that you also are going to tap me on the shoulder and point out that I don't really know what I'm talking about. And the same is true of you. That goes with being professional, of course, and affects how we behave. And ultimately, I suggest to you, it affects most of all how we can be managed and the realities of managing people like us in the organisations that we work in the legal form that they have taken, whether it's partnerships or incorporated entities, be they LLPs or even joint stock liability companies, masquerading as partnerships, which is what I will argue every professional service firm is in reality anyway. Because, of course, we need to distinguish, do we not, between thing businesses and thought businesses, between businesses that sell objects and businesses that sell knowledge. Businesses that sell knowledge are fundamentally different in ways that are still not appreciated by lawyers, by clients, certainly not by investors. Thing businesses are asset rich, they're lower margin. Yeah? Knowledge businesses are asset poor. Increasingly, you don't even need an office to run a law firm. Yeah, but you are high margin. And if you're not high margin, look at your business operations. Principal shareholder return for thing businesses is an equity gain. Principal shareholder return in knowledge businesses is in profit share. At the end of the day, in a partnership, when we sell our equity, we don't in most firms. We get nothing for it. If we're lucky, there are youngsters coming through prepared to pay into the firm so that we can get some equity out. But there's no equity gain there. We get our return from profit. Margin matters significantly in professional services. Thing businesses have to be hungry for finance. Knowledge businesses are not. They're coveted by financiers. Why? Because they would like to invest in something that makes that much money. That would do their portfolio no end of good. Question is, of course, why thought businesses need money to start off with when they haven't got the assets. Yeah. Thing business is easier to sell. Knowledge business is difficult to sell because there's no asset in there other than the people. And if you're going to pay them a lot of money to buy their business, you shouldn't be surprised if the door opens and they all walk out on day 2, leaving you with an empty office full of out-of-date technology and a few muppets. This is what happens when professional service firms are acquired. Owners, managers, and doers have commas between them. And here you are, Rupert, here are your hyphens. We've now got owner, manager, doers, who are the same people, of course. You can separate the business from the owners here. Not so easily here, of course. Now, of course, part of my thesis is, as I'm sure some of you have already recognised, that as the 21st century evolves, these distinctions are merging. How many of us, however, are continuing to manage ourselves on the right-hand side, whilst increasingly selling services that show characteristics of the left-hand side? How many of us are rewarding and measuring our success in commercial terms on the right-hand side, when increasingly our services are morphing into left-hand side activity? It's a challenge we're going to need to face up to. You can call those things on the left companies if you wish, and partnerships on the right. You can call them companies on the right if you wish, but as I say, they are behaving as partnerships still, regardless as legal form. So to what extent are law firms having to find room for service lines that look like thing businesses? Do law firms need to be better at integrating thought and thing businesses? And to what extent are those challenges challenging our definitions and expectations, not just of professionalism and client service, but challenging our structure, the way we remunerate ourselves, our relationship with other people, even to the nature of partnership itself, for those of us who are still partnerships. Partnership, a very ancient but a very modern and flexible structure that can be enhanced by technology, of course. Replacing the discipline, the safety, the security of the hierarchy, but the inflexibility that comes with that, of course. But as we move from thought to thing, to what extent do we need to acknowledge that we need both things, that both types of structure can bring to us? And if we have both, how do we fit them together? Now, in an accounting firm, we've always sat on a hierarchy as partners. In a law firm, that hierarchy has historically been much thinner, and the network of partnership at the top has been much fatter. But as we are managing thing businesses for commercial efficiency, to what extent are we going to need to compromise some of our fundamental truths? Back here again. Ultimately, I suggest to you that Anderson's failed, not because it wasn't commercially successful, but because its organizational culture and structure forced it to compromise on its professionalism, and that's at the heart of what went wrong there. Professional service challenges, therefore. Management get in the way of professional service if we're not careful. But we need to acknowledge the reverse is also true. Professionals get in the way of management. Client service gets in the way of professionalism. And the reverse is also true. Personal professionalism matters more than management fiat. What matters to you? What comes first? That you are a lawyer? That you are a lawyer in your firm? That you have a particular set of clients? That you are a lawyer in a particular discipline? That you're not a lawyer at all, but you manage professional service firms? How are those definitions getting less and less defined? To what extent is that hierarchy of definitions changing as we move more into the 21st century? The culture of disobedience, I've already suggested to you. Staff paid for their expertise and judgment, not their obedience. And that's with due respect to Edmund Burke, of course, who described members of Parliament as people who are owed don't know obedience to the electorate, but the exercise of their expertise and judgment. And the extent to which that gets away of commercial discipline and what it is that we need to do to force change through our organisations. Ultimately, efficiency and consistency and commercial discipline can get in the way of integrity and customer service and professional integrity as well. Takes me to another business. In case you don't know, this is also not a law firm. Anybody recognise this business? It's Pret. This is Pret-a-Manger. I'm sure many of us spend a lot of time in Pret-a-Manger. Pret-a-Manger here, this is the bit of Pret that you don't see. This is behind the scenes. This is the kitchen in one of their stores. One thing it's distinctive, indeed, arguably unique about Pret-a-Manger as a multi-location sandwich business is the fact that every one of its stores has its own kitchen. Every single one. Why? Fresh. Now, the freshness of sandwich. Now, I'm talking to professionals here. I've already asserted that you are well paid, so I've got to be careful with the next question. How many of you still make your own sandwiches? Oh, some. Okay, take some comfort from this. How long is it before a sandwich starts going off, before it starts curling up, before it gets that tired, crusty surface on the top, before the tomato starts soaking through to the bottom? How long? A couple of hours. What do you use? Mother's Pride? Well-made sandwich with decent bread, how long does it last? A couple of hours? Minutes, I would suggest, before that sort of thing starts getting on. Pret-a-Manger, of course, acknowledged that there are ways of doing this. First of all, you could use Mother's Pride. Secondly, you can inject it full of chemicals. Thirdly, you can make sure that your tomatoes are drier rather than moister. There are all sorts of things that you can do to help artificially preserve the life of the sandwich. Or you can do something different. You can have your own kitchen on site and you can manage the production of your sandwiches to match the pattern of delivery, of demand that's coming through the shop. The alternative that every other multi-site store is going to do is, of course, they're going to manage their operations, manufacturing operations centrally, and early morning they're going to distribute their stock to shops through a fleet of refrigerated vans. It works, of course it does. And you can make a lot more money that way. It's Pret-a-Manger sacrifice margin and profit in the interest of preserving what they consider to be distinctive about their business. Maybe there are some lessons for us as well as we work through the rest of our day in terms of uniquenesses in our business model that maybe we need to preserve in the face of the dictates of management and commercial necessity. Other questions for us as we work through our day. Is partnership a model for the past, or is there something in it from the future? How many of us work in partnerships that are no longer partnerships? How many of you are partners who feel like staff? How many of you are leading partnerships and are jolly glad that you're no longer behaving like partnerships? But to what extent, in throwing away the partnership ethos, are we running the risk of not fostering the culture of disobedience and inefficiency that is part of professionalism? Or maybe we need part of that anyway, as we're increasingly moving towards thing businesses rather than thought businesses and commodifying our services. Because in a post-internet age, things are changing. To what extent do we need even to challenge our notions of growth? Somebody has argued that in a post-internet age, the law of diminishing firms has replaced the law of diminishing returns. We no longer need to be big to be successful. The future of the law is going to be safe in the hands of the smaller firm, not the bigger one. And that's got implications for how firms work together in partnership arrangements, of course. And in terms of looking at the boundaries between organisations and the loyalties that individuals have to their organisation or to their profession or to their clients, to what extent, as the 21st century matures and evolves, are the boundaries between firms going to get weaker and less defined? That's something I'm interested in, as relationships between professional service firms now as important as the relationships inside the firms and between those firms. Let me leave you some questions. There is no poll here, but these can percolate in your mind as you're talking about technology and cyber this, that, and the other, and fundamental, important issues that are affecting our firms. What's your version of Pret's Kitchen? Is there something in your firm that you are in danger of squeezing out of existence? Yeah? For sensible commercial reasons, you're not stupid. Are you in danger of throwing things into the skip? What is your skip? Things that maybe you should keep out of your skip. Are you in danger of not throwing things into your skip? Are there some shibboleths, sacred cows in your organisations that you should have got rid of 25 years ago? How are Cliff and Mary getting on in your firm? Are you Cliff? Are you Mary? Are you Mary trying to be Cliff? Are you Cliff trying to be Mary? There's some questions there. And then lastly, of course, enjoy your day. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed speaking to you.